Okay, I'll call this work session to order. Please join me in the pledge. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, the first thing we have on the agenda is the representatives for the Great Peconic Race. I see Don D'Amato and Billy Baldwin are here. I don't know, Don, you want to speak? Bill, you want to? We had this last year and it was a last minute cancellation because of the COVID epidemic, but this is something we've done in the past and want to talk about it. So
Guys,
Bill,
I don't know
Don.
if you can, I don't know if you can hear me. My video was working, but someone turned it off.
We can hear you, but we can't see you, but that's okay. There you go. Now I see you.
Thanks for having us again. Yeah, we thought it was best the last 2 years not to do it. We didn't want to create any more anxiety that there already was there. And do you, before I start, because I know a lot of you have been with us for the last 6 years, and I don't know how many new people are. I don't want to be repetitive. So is there something you'd like me to address in particular or just?
I would say, Bill, I would say it's been 2 years. Let's start from scratch.
Okay. So, guys, I started this event to honor my little brother. We grew up in these bays and we want to try to save our waters. So our mission statement for the Great Peconic Race is to educate the youth and to also help save our waters. We've donated money through this race through Cornell Cooperative, the Peconic Bay Keepers, Umashumak Park Nature Conservancy. And this year we've been speaking with Bethany and we're actually pretty excited about this. We're gonna start, we hope it's proposed, we're gonna start what we call a Watermen's program, where we're gonna be at Wades Beach and we're gonna try to develop a program where we're educating kids about all aspects of water, from water safety to swimming to paddling to improving the actual environment, be it planting eelgrass or scallops, but it's an entire, what we call an entire Waterman program, almost like a certificate you could get. And living out here, I think it's probably fairly important for kids to have all those different aspects. So the scope of what we do, the idea was to show the ability to endure and to give attention to our bays. So we do a circumnavigation around Shelter Island, which is 19 miles. In the past years, we've done it in September. The reason why we're trying to push it into the summer is because Gardiner's Bay has been unforgiving to us. I'm 62, so tackling 6-foot swells in Gardiner's Bay is getting a little bit tough. So we're trying to get it to in the midsummer where the winds are traditionally less coming out of the southwest and the water temperatures are a bit warmer. So this year, what we're trying to do at Wades Beach is simplify the race. We're only going to do 19 miles. We're not going to do a 9 and a 3 mile race. We're not going to have sponsors on the beach and all this, hoopla that we did before to make it like a big fun event. We want to do something simple to show that we can do an event at Wades Beach and make it complimentary to the people on the beach. Where I think people might even enjoy watching the racers coming in. And if you, I know someone downloaded our maps, or do you want me to bring them up by sharing a screen?
Christina, you can share it, Bill.
Okay, I'm going to share the screen. Don D'Amato helped put this together. Let me go to a different screen. There we go. So the idea was to go on the far west side of Wades Beach, where we'd have the race buoys coming in. And listen, for 19 miles, best case scenario, we'd have 75 paddlers, but most likely after a 2-year hiatus, maybe it'd only be 50, but something like that. And when I mean paddlers, board, I mean OC outriggers, I mean kayaks, I mean stand-up paddlers, and rowing sculls. One year we hired the rolling dough pizza truck out of Greenport, which we thought would be the less intrusive and simplest thing instead of setting up anything on the beach. So the only thing we'd set up at the beach would be one plastic table for awards. Everything else, people would bring their own chairs, their own umbrellas. All registration is online. There's no on-site registration. So we've simplified it as much as we could to be as respectful as we could to the bathers and people on the beach that day. And then the thought is, if we can do this and everyone goes, well, you know, Billy, it went well, it didn't cramp our style, and we're donating a large amount of money to this kids program, which we want to develop, we figured it'd be a plus, hopefully. Also, Don, let me see. Here's our race course, you see. It's going to go either clockwise or counterclockwise, depending on the winds. Tides are really not much of a factor. The Coast Guard, when we tried to get this approved a couple years ago, gave us, they said, guys, you've done such a great job. We have no problem on what you want to do, what time of year you want to do the race. You've been safe. Our track record's perfect. So they give us pretty much approval. We're waiting for official approval. Parking spaces, guys, we're thinking worst case scenario, we could have 45 cars, but I figured depending on what you want to do, we would park on the side of the road. People would drop their boats off at the morning at 6:30 and 7, and we park up on the road, whatever Jim Reed wants us to do. We don't need to take up parking spaces unless that's something you'd like us to do. And then we'd carry the boats down and we'd be out of people's way as much as we could. And I'm trying to think what else we have here. We've had safety boats around the island. The first ferry crossing is a non-issue because the North Ferry is a 9-minute crossing, the South Ferry is a 3-minute crossing. Whichever way we go, it's early morning, there's not a lot of boat traffic. We'll have a boat positioned there. That's the easy spot. When we get around to the second crossing, people are tired. Their judgments are not as good. We're definitely going to have probably 2 boats there, as we've always done, to make sure people get across in a safe and appropriate manner without cramping the movement of the ferry boats. And both ferry captains have been pretty positive about what we've done through the years. In the triangles in blue that you see, those were bailout points. We've never had to use them. All the bailing out that's been needed, we've used with boats on the water, where we've usually pulled people up a few miles, maybe 2-3 miles, and they finish the race. So we've had pretty good success with that. And again, I might have jumped around a little bit. I didn't go through all the written copy, but I'm happy to answer any questions or concerns anybody has.
Billy, can you go through slide 1? Just go through each thing so we're all on the same page and have full understanding.
Sure. So we're talking Sunday, which we figure is one of the slowest days, July 31st. A lot of boats on Sundays usually don't coming out till about 12. Our focus is Wade Beach to the west side of the beach. Again, the biggest thing we'll have there is this pizza truck, rolling dough pizza truck. There's no alcohol. Usually we have a little calypso band. There'll be no music this year. We'll have 1 or 2 of our bamboo poles with a banner for the finish line. There'll be no sponsor tents and no registration tent. So it'll be very low profile. People will start arriving at 6:30. We will launch at 8 a.m. And the first paddlers will come in 2.5 hours. The slowest paddlers will be about 6 hours. They'll come across on the far side of the swimming nets on Wade's Beach, and we'll enter on that west side with entrance buoys to the beach. We've told racers that anyone that can't complete the race within 6 hours will be pulled off the course, mandatory, no exceptions. Again, we're assuming maybe, even when we did the big race, I think the most we've ever had is 75 or so paddlers to do the 19-mile. It's a long haul. Not a lot of people can do it. And again, guys, the reason why we did the 19-mile race is I wanted to show people after the battle my little brother had is your human body can fight through a lot of hardship and really push itself to the limits. That was the idea of why do we do 19 miles around the island. And the second thing is we wanted to give exposure to raise money to save our waters, which you guys live out here, our waters are dying. Everything in it is dying, and we have to do everything we can to try to save them. And that's where the Waterman program came around that I chatted with Bethany about. We actually chatted about it 2 years ago, but now we have relived it. If we can get the youth to love and want to nurture and cherish these waters, that's our best defense I think we have. And that's where I believe we want to commit everything to and push forward every year and try to make the program bigger and stronger and better to help the kids.
Don, can you go to slide 4?
Is that slide 4?
Yes.
Okay.
So Billy, I just want to talk to this because I want the town board to be on the same page. One is there really isn't parking out on Midway Road. It's on a bend and it's posted no parking unless the town board wants to stop that for that day or a portion of that day. I do think I do feel comfortable with what you have shown here on that day to have 49 spaces and keep them up front for the residents or for our normal parking. And then 45 spaces would be up for sale through our parking permitting at $25 a space. So we could work our parking permitting system to allow that to happen for that day. So tied into that, there might be some merit for coming up with a cap on the number of people that can go in this race. So if we're talking about 50 people in the race and 50 spaces, is that enough? Do people come in pairs? Because at 75, I think we might have trouble with spacing. And I'm comfortable with the 10 on the side that Don has noted too. So you have 55 spaces there approximately.
Isn't that
Bill,
what
do
the
you want to speak to a cap?
Are you addressing me, Jim?
Yes.
Yeah, Jim, that's really got to be up to you guys. So the Great Peconic Race, and again, this is not just this year. We talked to Bethany. We have in reserve now about 30 grand that we need to do something with, and it's been sitting in our bank for 2 years. And I talked to Bethany 2 years ago saying I'd like to commit the 30 grand to your program. So, it's whatever.
So
you
for me,
guys want to do.
Billy, I have to look at it from a different perspective. That's quite frankly, from my specific perspective in the police department, is irrelevant. I'm just looking at this event on that date and looking at capacities. So, and giving recommendation to the town board, who's ultimately going to have the final say. Right. So I'm just strictly looking at, I can see the broader picture, but I'm just looking at it from that perspective.
Can I just jump in here, Jim?
Yeah, BJ, let me just finish this thought.
All right,
Sorry. It's the first year that we're going to look at it in July. So I think there's some merit on the town's part to having some cap this year. You want to operate in good faith, give us the opportunity to look at it during this July period. We haven't done that before, but also capping it for our residents. Sorry, BJ.
That's all right. No, I shouldn't have. I believe, very much the cap, but I was thinking we could have 2 caps really. And that would be a cap on the parking spaces, 45. I think on the 10, where the 10 spaces are, that's where the pizza truck is going. So that's probably not going to be 2 available. So anyway, 45 spaces and then cap it at 75 participants. I'm still worried though about the boat traffic that day. I know you're going out early, but boy, all around Claudio, it's get crazy out there. It gets crazy.
Bill, you want to tell, what your follow boats and, what safety measures you have?
Well, the first year we did the race, and Jim, I agree with you, Jim, just to address Jim's last point. We don't have a problem doing a cap. We feel so strongly about what we're doing. If this can help us get away from the big winds of September and say, listen, Billy, let's cap it at this, for the first year, happy to do it. I think where I was going with the donation and this kids program, I write kids books, guys. All I want to do is help kids in any way I can. And if we can build this environmental program and make it a big part of Shelter Island, I think it's pretty cool. So that's where I was going with that whole thing. So the first year we did the race, it was really cool. We had, the MR6, Coast Guard cutters here, and they were stationed at both ferries. And we had like 20 rescue boats encompassing the entire island. It was like a military operation. And the next year we got less. And the next year we had less. And why? We realized that every 2 miles, we didn't need a rescue vessel. And so I now have spaced them out a little bit better. And we've learned where the hot spots are and where more of our concerns should be. So that's how we've addressed it before. And we'll do the same thing this year. Our biggest concern is always on the ferry slips. The southern side boat traffic is better. For some reason, that canal in Greenport, the Greenport Canal, seems to be a bit of a racetrack. So that's where we've always put more concern. So depending, let's say if we're going to go clockwise, the north side is not going to be an issue because we'll be done early morning. The issue will be going from Meshumak Point to the South Ferry, cutting across where boats go to Smith Cove. We'll station boats there to make sure people are well protected and visible. And also we'll let people know, we'll put the word out in local media and everything. So people will know about the race, which will be helpful as well. And again, we've never had a problem. If we go the other way around, hugging the shore by Greenport is fine. The only part that gets a little dicey is between the North Ferry going to Sunset Beach. And that's how we would, again, position boats to make sure people are safe. So we've analyzed it pretty well. We've had, so far, pretty good success.
Billy, why don't you speak to your support vessels in this? And just for Councilman Ianfala, I want her to be clear that our police department does not take up any positions along the race course. We're there for our normal operations and support in an emergency. So Billy, maybe you should speak to how many support vessels you have and where they're coming from.
We've not gone into detail with the Coast Guard yet. We're waiting for their official approval. It usually takes a few months. We've got several personal boats. One is my boat. Normally, when we contact the Coast Guard Reserve and or the local firemen, a lot of people want to participate because they think it's fun. So we will determine how many boats are needed when we figure out how many racers are going to be coming to the event. So we've always had plenty of boats. It's just it's a little early to tell what we're going to do yet. But as you know from our track record, we've always had more support boats than less. Coming from the U.S. Coast Guard to Coast Guard Auxiliary to local firemen, Bay Constable, et cetera, and personal watercraft. And I imagine we'll probably have a little bit of all the same again. But again, it's just a little too early for me to tell you it's going to be this captain, this vessel, et cetera.
Just a comment, Bill. Safety-wise, when you kept saying that every year we've gone with less and less safety vessels because we just felt that was an overkill. I just want to be cautious about going too low. It's a long area. That 19 miles stretches out for a long way. I feel more comfortable with more rather than less. I don't say you have to go back to the original levels, but I'd be very cautious about cutting back too much on terms of those safety or support vessels. The second question is, are all participants required to wear safety jackets? Life vests?
Yeah, I probably said it. It was a poor choice of words. I agree with you. You can't cut back too far. I've grown up in Little Peconic Bay my whole life, and the morals that are on the water today and the way people drive is always of concern. It's like it is on the road. People don't know what the rules of the water are anymore. Um, Everyone is required to bring a whistle, to have an attachment to, if it's a stand-up paddleboard, and a life preserver on their vessel. Stand-up paddlers are not required to wear a life vest, and we've gone through this with the Coast Guard throughout the years, because when you're paddling 19 miles that distance, it's extremely cumbersome, and it's not something that is used a lot on racing, but it's on your vessel, you're attached to your vessel. And a lot of the guys on surf skis will also wear life vests. Usually that's more of a standard thing because they're used to being in the ocean all the time racing. And I've done a lot of stand-up paddle racing myself. Yeah, we do everything. Everything is there in place to be safe and appropriate regarding the national rules of racing that we apply to.
So even the stand-up paddleboard type of thing, you're required to have a vest with you, but not wearing it. Is that true?
True. Very, very, very few people will ever wear one when they're racing.
Right.
They'll have a leash on their body. So if they fall or lose balance, they're attached to a flotation device. And then it's a little life preserver, like a waist belt. That's also on their board, mandatory, and a whistle. You have to have. Sometimes the safest thing in the water is a whistle. That's how they find people many times.
Yep. Okay.
And also remember, on this course, we know the water so well. We've marked out the different stretches and what concerns are there regarding tide, wind, duration of the crossing. Our biggest concern regarding endurance and physical exhaustion is between Hay Beach to Rams Island. That's a 4-mile stretch. And mentally, It's a very tough stretch. When you get past that stretch, you actually get a second wind and people push actually more aggressively towards the finish line. Except
one of the things,
Don's
one of
already
the things I was thinking,
he beat us all.
one of the things I was thinking about, you say people arrive at 6:30 a.m. You're going to start the race at 8 o'clock. Would there be a time at about 7:30 or so for a 15-minute overview with all the participants required to be there to discuss some of these things, just about having a map out and just saying, here where our safety vessels are, here are areas of concern, just to review those safety concerns on the spot with all participants, a half hour, 15 minutes before the beginning of the race, just as an extra precautionary kind of thing. Have you ever done that, or do you think that's a decent idea or no?
Jim, you ask all the right questions. We've done that every year. It's called the captain's meeting. And 2 years, we had the Coast Guard actually come in, stand on shore with us, and go through the captain's meeting. And we go through the race course, we go through bailouts, we go through requirements that people are supposed to do. We actually had the Coast Guard actually inspect the vessels to make sure they were all set and ready to go regarding life preservers. So your idea is exactly what we do, and an extremely important thing to do.
Jim, you may not have seen it. That was submitted in their safety plan, and all your questions answered. It was submitted. Can I take the share screen for a second? Christina?
Billy's got to drop his.
Oh, sorry.
Well,
I'm gonna take off my share. Here we go.
So Billy, in 2020, you submitted this. Can you see that okay? So in this plan, as we start, it has flag boat, roaming boat, two roaming boats, roaming boat, flag boat as we go around the island. I'd really like to see something like that again once you have your plan in place. If the board chooses to approve this, maybe we could do a provisional approval until we see, if you think about what Councilwoman Ianfola had to say, I think it's pretty important for us to get something similar to this in the end to support this.
Jim, if it's approved, we will confirm the direction of the race. We'll confirm what vessels are going to be in the race, who's going to be in the vessels, and how they're going to move all the way around the island. again, the great advantage we have is once half the race is done, we only have to protect the next 9 miles. So it becomes much easier as the time goes on. But the answer is yes. Yeah.
My last concern, Bill, is liability. Two things here. Do all participants sign off on liability? I guess they do, a certificate of liability
There
insurance.
is,
So
I'm gonna miss Jim, again, you're on target with everything. I'm gonna forget the name completely. It's called the American, Don, maybe the American Canoe Association. They actually do insurance for the Olympic rowing team.
Mhm.
So every year we've had their insurance, which covers us. Again, I don't remember right now, maybe it's $3 to $5 million, whatever it might be. And then everyone signs off a waiver as well. So again, this is one of the predominant insurance groups in the country. And it's better insurance than almost any race out here does. Everyone does local little insurances. This is I'm concerned about my well-being as well. I don't want to be living in a box in the woods somewhere. So I make sure that we're very well covered.
A portion of the registrant's fee is for that insurance, is it not, Billy?
Our fee of $125, the reason for the fee is it covers food, insurance, a token gift, a rash guard that we give them, and then collecting as much money as we can to donate to the cause of that year that we're doing. So, yeah.
That brings up my sort of final question here. Without sponsors, isn't that going to affect your fundraising ability?
This is not a large event. So when we've had Riverhead Toyota and other sponsors like that, they give us a small amount of money here and there. Our biggest money comes from individuals. And we already have one individual slated to give us a minimum of 25 grand this year. So,
Wow.
We're slated to give, again, this is not this year. You can talk to Bethany. We were already positioned to give you guys 30 grand to help start a program. This year, we will probably do something similar as well. So by the end of this year, you're probably gonna have 60 grand to start this kids program if it's approved by you guys, which I think would be, again, I'm pretty excited about. And I do apologize that we didn't give the money earlier. It's only because everyone the last 2 years got distracted and, but it's coming back around. So
Actually, I think you did make a contribution to the Crescent Beach bathroom last year.
we did. We gave was it $2,500 to a water fountain? I think it was.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah.
Right.
And it comes out Hawaiian punch instead of water. It's really good.
So Don, I would say the next step would be to actually fill out the application for outdoor assembly.
It's here, we got it.
It's already been done.
Why didn't see it? And is the certificate of insurance with that? I didn't see that.
No, the insurance, we don't get the insurance until probably 2 weeks
Right.
before the event, but it's a
Okay.
standard. I can give you a copy of what we've done before. It's, yeah.
Can I ask the question that hasn't been raised so far? I'm just concerned that we're using Wade's Beach on a summer Sunday, like July and August are like our biggest,
Yeah, I kind of have
months here.
stats on that, Amber. I think we'd be able to handle the capacity at the numbers they're looking at.
Because you've done counts on me. And a little bit of a concern, can I do this screen share for a minute, Christina? I wish Brian were on, but maybe someone else knows. It's not showing. Hold on a second, sorry. Sometimes it's in looking at the beach, because we've moved like where your location is. Where did my Google Earth go?
north,
We
near the
moved-
boats.
We moved it further down.
Yeah,
Mhm.
out north of the beach area, probably in front of where the boats are stored. That area along the
Mhm.
area
Right,
of
let
the
me just-
storage.
Here we go.
Yeah, votes.
Because it looks like, yeah, good, it's up. It looks like you're planning on using this area here, which can be, pretty, I think, pretty populated in the summertime because it's, near to the bathrooms. But I'm hoping that like where these boats are now is where we start, where we've got the kayaks and.
Mhm.
Well, you know what we can-
catamarans.
Do you know what we can do? Because listen, we're paddlers. We walk the beach a lot. So we can wait for the summer. We can look at the weekend before. And I can go out there with Don and maybe someone else and say, listen, Billy, it's been a busy summer. People are going to hear you need to be, west of this marker. I think that's an easy thing to do.
Okay, yeah,
think
because I know I've been down there, in, summer weekends before, and we moved the boats down because this area here is so populated, and sometimes watching like people trying to get the cats and the bigger boats out. And it was like, oh gosh, like, please don't run
Little
over the small
nerve-wracking.
children. Please don't run over the small children. So I'm a little concerned, like, because it looks like early in, when you're setting up and going out, I think you're early enough, but you're going to be coming back in between 11 and 2. And that's like prime beach.
Amber, let's just make that the location. It's well posted. Don, you're familiar with the postings down there. It's where we keep them between those catamarans and the larger vessels. So let's just keep it at that location.
Keep it
In
in
front of-
this area here.
Yeah, right in front of where we have it posted, right where those boats are, Amber.
Okay, so move it down.
We
to
have the
this
highway post that location for where they can put those, and we'll let them operate right in front of that. I think that's far enough away from the bathrooms and should help to do what you achieve what you're trying to.
And
Yeah, I'm just
also-
concerned about density.
Also, guys, it's a fun activity. You're watching people race in to the beach, which is, it's kind of entertainment, it's fun. And it's what we're all here to participate in the water, hopefully in a healthy, good way. So it's not all a bad thing, as long as we don't encumber people's, leisurely time. But I think people might enjoy it, especially if we're trying to help build this Waterman kind of program, which I think is pretty cool. So.
Any questions, Mike? You good?
No, might have been covered.
Jim, anything else?
No, mine are covered. Thank you.
PJ, you good?
I'm good.
Okay.
Okay. I
Wait,
think we're
one
good.
more thing. I had a cookie company. I bake great cookies. I will bring cookies for everyone on the beach. And they're insane cookies. They're really good.
There you
Yay.
go.
Done
Bill, here's the deal.
There we go.
That's known as sweetening the pot.
Yeah.
So Billy, here's the deal. If I'm late, start without me, will you?
Jerry wants a spot at the 18-mile marker to start. He's
Listen,
gonna
I
do the
want you
last
to know-
mile.
I want you to know
I
that young man, Don D'Amato up there has ripped that 19 miles apart multiple times.
Wow,
He's not just a pretty face.
there you go.
There you go.
All right, Jimmy, you're good? No more questions?
No, so if the board is inclined to give them a preliminary approval, I'd still like to see that boater safety plan completed. So I could see us, understanding the date, making those adjustments. Don, I think we should adjust that map. I think
Yep.
it's slide 4.
Right.
If I have your count right.
Yep.
Actually, it's
Will
slide
do.
2 to accommodate what Amber was talking about. I'd like to see those adjustments that we talked about completed before a final approval. So.
And I like,
Yep.
yeah. And I like the limit idea that we did. I like my limits, but I'm not married to them. Parking limit separate from a participant limit.
Yep, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, and I for the people who live on the island, there's no little encouragement for drop off in the morning and then pick them up when they finish. They
Yeah.
don't have to park a car there necessarily, at that point. So
Exactly.
anything we can do with local people that can be dropped off at
Yeah.
appropriate time and then the car is, gone, they can come back.
Jim,
at the
how much
finish of the
lead time
race.
do you need? Jim, how much lead time?
For what, Don?
You said that when you final approval, is that 2 weeks or a
I don't
month?
know, the board's gonna need the timeframe on the
29th.
final approval.
Mm.
Yep, April 29th is our next town board meeting.
Yeah.
So if you can get it to us in the next week or so.
Yeah. So you're getting a preliminary okay to move forward with finalizing the plan.
Thank you, guys. And I appreciate all the questions.
All right, thank you. Thanks for doing this too.
So Jerry, so the board is in preliminary approval on a cap of 75 persons and 50 cars.
Right. And based on your approval of
Yeah.
the water plan.
Okay.
With the safety map and then insurance before the race.
And I know in
Absolutely. All
prior
that stuff will be
years-
there.
Yeah, in prior years, we were going to have a preliminary meeting of like a week or two ahead of the event, just to kind of finalize things. So we may want to consider doing that again. It ended up getting canceled. I think it was last year I was going through looking for the Great Peconic Race and finding canceled meetings just ahead of the event. But we might want to do that.
Yeah, you can make it a
Mhm.
condition of the approval.
Mhm. Yeah. And that way, if it gives you a chance on the 24th to look at location and scope things out, then we can discuss anything that week ahead of the event for any tweaking.
Hey, guys, we're very flexible to do anything to prove that we can do something appropriate and we can move forward and make it a wonderful annual event. So I'll do any compromises or anything to help it work.
Okay. All right, Billy, thank you very much.
you.
Don,
Thank
thanks
you.
again for all your work.
Thank you.
Have a great day,
Thanks,
guys.
Bill.
Thank you.
You too.
You too.
Bye.
Don't forget the cookies.
Okay.
Gluten-free, of course. Gluten-free.
All right, next on the list is the
Uh,
Shelter Island Historic Society. Isn't Annette here?
Yes, I saw.
Oh, yeah, there she is. Yeah, yeah. This was, we had talked about this a while ago, but I guess there was some miscommunication. We got the application earlier. This is for for the musical play that the Historical Society started last year. They're gonna do it again this year. The dates are July 23rd through the 26th.
26th.
You there, Nanette? Okay. I have set up 7:23. Okay, set up 7:23, clean up 7:26. The show will be the 23rd, the 24th, and the 25th. It's pretty much the same as last year, right?
Actually, the show, pretty much the same as last year. This year on the 22nd, we're doing a sort of a friends and family dress rehearsal. It
Okay,
doesn't really make a whole lot of difference for the application, but
the 22nd, that is?
Yeah.
yes.
So when will the setup be? The 21st?
No,
or
excuse me, the 23rd, excuse me, I misspoke.
Okay. Okay,
Yeah. And set up, what we mean by that is bringing in the costumes, the props, that kind of thing, setting up chairs if we're going to use this year. That's what setup is.
and did you see any issues last year that we need to address?
We really didn't. It went very smoothly. I actually had a question, having listened to the previous presenter. Does the town have any thoughts on a maximum number we should be considering? Because last year we reached about 250 per performance. The parking was handled very well, thanks to people in this room that helped out. We do ADA parking on our property on the Shady Lane side, and then of course use the town lot, which that permit has already been, or permission has already been approved. So was there any thought to, gee, maybe they could put a maximum number?
I would leave that up to the chief for his recommendation or highway department.
Okay.
Really, ours was more based on safety on the water and use of the beach parking lot. This is a little different, so I think it's what can safely be held there. Chief?
Okay,
If somebody can copy me the plan, I haven't seen it.
Okay.
You have it,
Oh.
Christine? You want to share it?
I was having trouble finding it.
I'll forward it on.
Annette, can you just take us through the whole thing from start to finish? Sometimes that's best if you just present it.
mhm.
sure. Well, we sent in the permit application a couple months ago. It's basically exactly the same as last year. It's a musical theater production, all volunteers involved. There's probably about 45 volunteers. This year's topic is the Prospect Hotel. The name of the play is Prospect of Summer. Lisa Shaw is the creator, producer, implementer. The parking, oh, there's our site plan. The parking will be shady lane for ADA and also on the town lot. We'll have volunteers directing parking. We have a higher end portalette coming with a hand sanitizer for people's safety for that. There won't be any food or drink involved. People are welcome to bring their own. And we expect about 250, 300 people per performance. What else? It's a fundraiser, it's a community event. Last year it worked really well.
My recollection is that you only sold a certain amount of tickets, so it was capped via the tickets.
It was capped because of COVID restrictions. But we did end up with, as I said, about 200, 250 one night.
So you never
it's
had really
really
had problems? You never had problems with the crowds or the parking?
No, we had no problems. Our own property, we can accommodate 300 people easily sitting in chairs, sitting on their blankets. It's more about the parking. So if we have 300 people, maybe we have, 100 cars at any given time. We do encourage carpooling. We encourage staff and crew involved, meaning the volunteers, to park elsewhere to cut back on the cars. But that's always the biggest challenge. But there were no complaints, no problems last year. Knock on my desk.
What do you do on account of rain? What happens?
The date.
Yeah,
There was a
rain
rain
They
day.
shift it. Yeah, there is a rain date. Okay,
No.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I just didn't get through it.
Yeah, it goes from 7:31 to 8:1.
Okay.
What's the time
Thank
on
you.
that? Time to the performance?
Chief, how do you handle the traffic in this?
5 to 8.
You had the TCOs working this or?
I don't believe, I think they handled all on-site parking themselves. I can't recall. I'd have to go back and look at last year to see if we put somebody on 114.
I think you're correct. I think we handled it ourselves. I know for farmers market, of course, you've been more than helpful. But I think for the event itself, it was us.
So Nanette, my only recommendation is that you take a strong look at your parking capacity. And then based on that capacity, I think maybe while it was so smooth last year was that there was a cap. So that 300 sounds like probably would be a high number for you if in looking at parking capacity.
Okay, we'll take a look at that. I'm actually glad I heard that conversation earlier because, we want to keep everybody safe and comfortable, and it's about having a good time, not worried about your car and traffic and injuries. So,
Yeah, Jim, are you comfortable with having at least one police officer or a TCO down there on 114, especially at the start and the finish of the event? Basically on that curve, it's just, you'll thank your lucky stars. There's no accidents, people crossing the road and things like that. I just think it'd probably be as advantageous to have, it's a big event with a lot of people and quite a few cars. I just think it would.
So the
be worth it.
23rd, 24th, and 25th.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, just for the 2-day performance of the,
3 days.
or 3 days,
3 days.
excuse me. Yeah, 3 days, yes.
Yeah, so Nanette, I would assume that the larger issue is on exit because everybody exits at the same time, but they probably get there a little more spread out.
true, most people come early. The exit is a challenge for us. It will be around 8:30, kind of twilight at that time of year. So yeah, it's a bit of a concern.
Yep, not a problem.
Any questions?
Now, neighbors have been pretty good with this, Nanette. The people live down the shady lane there.
They've attended, so I guess
Yeah,
they're good.
okay. That's a good thing.
Do we know how many cars can be held in the town parking lot next to the Historical Society? Because I
Well,
think that we
it's an
need to think about
it's an
that.
interesting question because there aren't defined parking spaces. We try to do our best by taking spray paint and spraying potential parking spaces, but if it rains, they kind of drift away. So we try really hard to look at that. And then we also like to prevent people from going back, back further where the town uses storage area. So I can get a sense from last year of what we did there with farmers, and the
Mhm.
person that, one of our board members actually maps out the parking spots.
I
I'll
think that would
find
be
out from
helpful.
him what he thinks.
Yeah.
And Chief, do you or the highway department marks out 114, there's no parking on that curve?
No, that's posted by the state. So
Oh, okay.
that curve is perpetually posted. no
Okay,
parking.
all right, good.
Okay.
Mhm. Okay, I think we're good on this one. We just make sure we get the updated insurance. liability.
It was
I got last one.
attached. I can resend it if you don't have it, but I did
Oh,
attach
This is
it.
this year's? Okay, yep, I
Yeah,
got
this
it. Yep,
Okay.
thank you.
Oh, yeah, it's January.
Yeah, Okay, all right, we're good, I think.
Thanks on that.
Thank you very
Well,
much.
thank you. I hope you all get to come.
We do too.
Amen.
Okay, next on the agenda is the status of the Conroy House. This is the house in Silver Beach that we've notified the owner that it's an unsafe building. I don't know, Steve, Steven, you have anything for us on this?
Yeah, I know, Bob, did Jim want to speak?
Jim, any updates on this? or-
No, other than the fact that, I think we had a meeting here Sunday, so it constantly comes up. We're in the fourth year of this now. It started in 2018. The house has been condemned now for 2.5 years. There have been massive efforts to try to contact Mr. Conroy up in Maine. We finally hired somebody to officially notify him. After many attempts, we finally did get to notify him of what the situation was. He had 30 days to remediate the situation and contact the town. I don't think to date any of those contacts have happened. It's been beyond 30 days, well beyond 30 days now since he was notified. The house has continued to deteriorate both outside and in. The roof is sagging badly. The back door has been open for at least 2.5 years. The black mold inside the house is growing. It's not so much the outside of the property that people are upset about, even though it doesn't look good. The limbs down, the grass is very high, but the town does maintain that. Every year, Mr. Sherman goes in with his highway department, cuts the grass and tidies up a little bit on the outside. If there are down limbs, he cuts those up and takes those back to the recycling center. I don't think the owner has been charged any of that.
Are those costs being put on to?
That's what I was going to say. It
Ryan has
should happen. And my last point was that numerous pictures have been taken of the property, dozens and dozens and dozens of pictures from the outside. Nobody's been on the inside of the building. It would be absolutely unsafe to enter the premises, even if you could get into it. But the people that live immediately around that area they're getting less and less tolerant of what's going on there. It's just, there are new houses being built there. That area is being built up right to the side of the property. That's a brand new house across the street, and over one that's a new addition. There's a brand new house. There's probably 3 or 4 major renovations and new houses within 250 to 300 feet of this property. So people would like to see this remediated. My only thing was, and I had asked, when we did this, is that when we did notify Mr. Conroy eventually, is that some of these pictures could have been transmitted to him so he could physically see what it looks like, just to give him a sense of urgency. Apparently he's still alive. I mean, there was some question about, whether he was still alive. I don't know who officially owns it. Taxes continue to be paid on it, although the assessments have gone down. Assessment on the house as it deteriorates, the assessments have gone down. It's not a high tax item, but the property is worth it's almost an acre. I think it's 0.96 of an acre or something like that. So the property is worth, quite a bit of money. The house is worth nothing. I mean, However, there are, as I've said before, there are valuables in the garage that you can see through into the garage, tools, lawnmowers, bicycles, things like that that were worth something. So if the town was to go and demolish the house, we would have to inventory that stuff, get that stuff out of the garage. There's stuff in the backyard. There are 3 or 4 kayaks and things like that that could be, brought to a site here and where we put the stuff,
Auction.
and auction it off eventually, to defray the cost. But inside the house, literally all the insulation is down. The ceiling insulation, the wall insulation is just hanging there and it's turning black. It's in bad shape. So we're at that point.
What's the next step legally? You would
So-
serve.
Yeah, so I know Bob was handling this, and a notice of violation was indeed served. It was ignored. So procedurally, for us to take an act as the town, whether repair it and charge it on the taxes, demolish it, charge it on the taxes, we have to serve notice to Mr. Conroy of a date and time of a public hearing. And once that public hearing occurs, whether he comes or not, then we can take an act. But we have to at least effectuate service again to accomplish that.
Stephen, on that point, I'm very comfortable with that. And I think, this is kind of new for us because most of the time we are able to, person comes out, sees the condition of it. Here he hasn't been down here in 4 or 5 years. So the 2 things that I'm more comfortable with is that he gets sees pictures of the property, which I can supply you with, and we can email him or when we serve him again, have those pictures available for him. And the second thing is if we have some type of meeting on this, that he be sent an opportunity to zoom in. I don't know what his physical condition is right now, but at least afford him the opportunity to be able to zoom in if he physically can't get down or somebody from the family can't get down to attend this meeting.
No, absolutely. That would, our town board meetings are hybrid and we'll have the opportunity to zoom in. I do see Bob on it, if Bob wanted to comment at all.
My only comment on that would be in light of the difficulties we've had serving him in the past, when you set the hearing, I would set it 2 meetings out rather than 1, so that you don't need to reset the hearing at some point
Right.
if we can't serve him.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Bob, we still have that same process server?
Yeah, I can send it back to them. We just need to, I guess we could put it on Friday.
Okay, and then also we'll
Photos, yeah.
get photos to have the process server.
I'll send them to you.
Okay.
Okay, I'll send you all the
Yep.
photos.
You have them? already?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So we'll do that for Friday. Thanks. Okay, next, BJ asked to put this on fees for business on town-owned property.
I'm going to ask to delay it.
Delay it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
we
sure.
can do. Yeah, I
Okay.
didn't do enough.
Okay,
I didn't get to it. I was busy.
no problem.
That's okay.
And then the next,
Look at these eyes.
Jim's been
Works
looking
for me.
into some grants for the charging stations, Jim.
Yeah, so basically there's money available now and everybody realizes that the only charging stations that we've officially gotten in place was about 3 or 4 years ago, is located at police headquarters on the north side. There is a dual station so you can charge 2 vehicles at the same time. There are members of the community that do take advantage of it. And looking at the comprehensive plan moving forward and trying to predict the increased number of electric vehicles in the next decade. I remember Mike Bebound sitting here and talking about that very thing, that there'll be a sharp increase as we move forward through this decade and the next decade. We need to have further charging stations. So with monies available and they are 100% reimbursable, we would like to cover the island a little bit more completely. So my idea was to try to get a recharging station at a site. And I've talked to Tim Pertel about this. I asked Tim not to get me one site in the north and one site in the south. I asked him yesterday if he would kindly get us 4 to 5 different locations that he feels would be good spots to locate these. Now, I don't know if we have to limit ourselves to just two sites, but I would like the town board to be able to have the luxury of looking at these various sites rather than just one site in the north, one site in the south, have several sites, maybe an additional site here in the center of town. The good thing about having them in areas where people can park and do something for an hour or 2 or 3, and go back to it. I know, I won't mention names, but people that use this recharging station, pull your car in, put your vehicle in, recharge, go to school, they play basketball for a couple hours, or they go to tennis court, play tennis, walk back to the car. It's all charged up, ready to go. We have a method of recharging our building department vehicles right back in the rear parking lot. So we have an ability to recharge our vehicles. The police department also has an area in the police department separate from the recharging station where they can recharge their new vehicle. So that's something to think about. As a town, do we feel that we have an adequate number of places? Since we are starting to move more towards electric vehicles, do we have an adequate number of stations in close proximity to town hall here and where we would need them to satisfy our needs for the next 5 to 10 years? So let's not make the decision just predicated on what we need today. Let's make the decision on what we think we'll need 5 to 10 years out, because these monies may not be available 5 to 10 years. And while the monies are available now, let's take advantage of it. That's my pitch. So I'll wait for Tim to come back. I asked him if he could get it to us today. He said he couldn't. So he needs a little bit more time, but I'll be on him to see if we can follow up on that.
Okay.
In addition to that, by the way, he is going to be looking into while I'm just on it, is the recycling center. He will be, the roof is capable of having solar panels. The roof is not slanted. It would have been a little bit better if it was higher at the front, lower in the back, and it does face south and west, but it is a flat roof, but it can support solar panels, enough solar panels to be able to accommodate the machines that lie below and truly be a true recycling center, in all aspects there. And the other thing, I was down there this morning when it was raining and there's a lot of water coming off that roof. The gutters will be installed hopefully sooner rather than later. Brian has been on them trying to get the roofing company.
Well, there's 3 projects. They're doing
Yeah.
that. They're doing the Legion Hall
Yeah.
overhang, and they're doing the
Right.
assessors building
Okay.
siding. So we're
Yeah.
waiting to get them here to do all 3 projects.
All right. So that's prime. I'd like to make that a priority. Jen is, I'm in contact with Jennifer Hingham and Massiano, and she knows of the monies that are available. So we will move forward quickly on that.
Okay, good. Thanks, Jim. Okay, next on the agenda is a TDR discussion. We got a letter from the Shelter Islanders for Clean Water and Responsible Zoning with some concerns about the TDRs. And then yesterday, BJ and I had a meeting with the CPF, and I think it's become clear that there's not a real clear understanding of exactly how the TDRs work. So Stephen, you want to address the letter first, and then we'll walk through it?
Sure. So we did receive a letter from the Shelter Islanders for clean water and responsible zoning. It seems to me they had 3 questions in there. One was why the town apparently believes that the creation of a TDR regime and bank are necessary for the creation of community housing. Why does the community housing floating zone established by section 51-15 of the town code not provide a sufficient basis for community housing? And then also whether there is some legal reason why TDR legislation cannot provide the TDRs can only be used for a project, a large specified portion of which is devoted to community housing. Well, I think, as far as the question, why the town apparently believes whether the TDR regime is necessary, I would defer to the town board, obviously, town board members for them to articulate that. But since I was asked, I'll briefly let you know my understanding. The town board does not believe that the creation of a TDR regime and bank are necessary for the creation of community housing. However, they do believe it's but one tool in the community housing toolbox, an important one at that. One that the current comprehensive plan recommends, is contemplated in the CPF chapter, is authorized by state legislation, and is utilized by all of the East End towns and 8 of the 10 towns in Suffolk County, and we're one of the 2 that don't have a program. And just like you referenced, the community housing floating zone is yet just another tool in the toolbox. However, TDRs are more flexible and efficient than the floating zone in that the owner of the parcel can keep the underlying land and keep ownership in that land. And then the development rights can be used for community housing in other areas of the town. And that's without the need for variances or other town approvals. And conceivably, if we adopt a septic credit program as well, variances from the county Department of Health will not be necessary either. It should be noted that this program is being merely explored at this time. The cart's before the horse a little bit because we put an RFP out to get consultants to prepare a GEIS, which is a necessary predicate for a TDR program. And I believe we got some responses today or the day before, and we're going to be looking at them. But that's a major factor. The town board needs information to make a decision. So it is premature at this point. So the GEIS, which will look at the impacts of such a program on the town's resources, particularly the aquifer, and they will take that into account when shaping and molding a TDR program or even adopting one at all. And in connection with the GEIS, and I'm using these terms, but GEIS is basically an environmental impact statement on the entire town and the impact of the TDR program on the entire town. So it's looking at it exhaustively. In connection with that, you're going to have a public hearing. So you'll have an opportunity to hear from the people. And then there'll be another public hearing if the town board decides to go forward after the GEIS and seeing what the program will look like. There'll be another public hearing at that point. And regarding the question raised as to whether a TDR program can be limited to just community housing, that answer is in the affirmative. This program may be narrowly tailored for exclusively community housing. And that's such as the one that was adopted in Southold regarding sanitary flow credits. And they limited it to eligible projects, and they defined eligible project as projects located in a receiving district that are permitted uses in the zoning district in which the subject property is located, projects in an affordable housing zoning district, and town of Southold municipal buildings. So in connection with the TDR program, there will be sort of a map that would show different areas of the town for potential receiving districts and sending districts. Now, how specific it's going to be, I'm not sure. That's for the consultant to determine. But again, it's a blank slate. You can create it as broad or as specific as you want. And I think that's where we are, just exploring those different potentials.
Could you give just a TDRs for dummies summary of how it works, that we're not increasing?
Yes. So last time, and this was brought up in law school, first year law school in real property, everybody has to take it.
Assessors 101.
And yes, it's bundle of sticks, right? So each property, when you own a piece of property, you have rights associated with it. You have the right to keep people off your property from trespassing. You have the right to develop it. And now, since the 1950s, you used to be able to develop it any way you wanted. Then zoning came along, and the Euclid case authorized municipalities to enact zoning. So inherently restricts your use of the property to certain things. So you have the ability to develop it in connection with that. So what we're talking about here mostly, because there's not a lot of commercial zoning in the town, we're talking about residential zoning. So for the most part, you get one dwelling per lot, right? So in this TDR program, what you're doing is looking at potential properties, and this is voluntary. So it would have to be a dance with the property owner. If they want to keep their property undeveloped, they can reach out to the town and say, hey, we'd love to help you out with community housing. You can transfer the development rights off my property. Say if it's for simple math, I'm not good at math, but let's say a 10-acre parcel, you could get 10 houses. You take those, you put it into a town bank where those 10 houses that you could possibly build now can be used in different areas of the town. And we got to figure out where that is and what would qualify for a good receiving parcel. So then our zoning says 1 lot, 1 house, that's it. You can't have any more than that. You know, you can have an accessory apartment, but you can't have another dwelling, 1 dwelling per parcel. So now someone who wants to develop some community housing, say, I got this 1 lot, I'd like to get 2 or 3 dwelling units on there. So they would go to the bank, they would purchase those 3. And if that parcel meets the criteria as a receiving parcel, they'd be able to, on our zoning side, deviate, not have to go for a variance and be able to put 2 to 3 units on it. Let's just say 2 units. Now, that's transfer of development rights. Then there's the tool called PDRs, which is purchase development rights. So say the owner of the property wants to keep their property, wants to use it for their own little wildlife preserve, but wants to develop. But I hate community housing and don't want it anymore. Don't need it. Go to Greenport. So you purchase the development rights, and now they're abandoned. They're not put in the bank. You purchase development rights, and now they're expired. So that density cannot be used anymore. It's extinguished.
Can you purchase the development rights and use them? What's the difference between
No,
Purchase and
purchase development, no, that's just it. If you purchase it, you abandon it. If you transfer it, you're putting it into the bank to use somewhere else. So you're transferring that right, as opposed to purchasing and killing it. So those are just, and then, so that has to do with our zoning and increased density. Now, other municipalities have, like Southampton, for instance, you could use development rights if your property, you're only allowed to clear 10%. They have this thing called the Aquifer Protection Overlay District. They have these excessive clearing limits imposed on the property. If I want to clear more, I could purchase the development right and exceed the clearing limit. So it's 10%, I could get to 50%. So you can figure it, do it any which way you want. But if you want to just limit it to community housing, that's fine. Now, that's one aspect of it. It's our zoning code. That's a TDR program regarding zoning. Then there's a TDR program regarding septic and dealing with the Department of Health. Now, in this hypothetical we had, and we're back to 2 houses, I'm a developer, community housing, I purchased development right. Now I don't have to go get a variance because I got that development right, so I could have 2 houses on this lot. But I can't generate sewage more than 1 parcel because Suffolk County says I can't. So you can go over to Suffolk County and say, hey, can I buy a development right, or can I go through you to increase the sewage and go through their program to get a development right for increased sewage? And they would give you a variance. So that's a variance procedure through Suffolk County Health Department. Now, if we so choose, which Southold has done, we can have not only a TDR program regarding our density and our zoning regulations, but we could have a TDR program regarding septic. And we get basically deputized by Suffolk County. They approve our program. And now that developer does not have to go to Suffolk County to increase sewage. They could just purchase a septic credit from our bank to increase the sewage directly. So it would make it a lot more efficient. So that's basically in a nutshell.
Okay, so to answer a couple of the questions here, why does the floating zone
Not enough.
not provide for sufficient basis? I think we need the TDRs to establish a floating zone.
No.
Well, I mean, to make it work.
Becomes the receiving district by
Well-
definition.
Well,
Let
no,
me just tell you.
no. The floating zone, again, is a separate tool in the toolbox. The floating zone would require me, who I want to put those 2 community housing dwelling units on 1 property. I would have to apply to you, go through this whole rigmarole, meet these standards, have to go, through this whole vetting process. Plus, that doesn't even address the septic.
That's what I'm saying. So you'd need the TDRs for the Board of Health portion.
But I can still go directly to Suffolk County without the town involvement and try to get a variance for increased sewage at that place. But what would make it good for those people who we'd expedite the process and have our own in-house septic credit, so they could just buy a credit from us as opposed to going to Suffolk County.
Because the way I see it, the TDRs and the floating zone go hand in hand. They don't have to,
They
but that's
can.
the easy way.
Oh, the best way, the most efficient way to develop community housing would, yes, have that intent.
Right.
But again, the floating zone would replace or could act as the plain vanilla TDR. When I said how we have poop credits and density credits. The density credits could be sort of obviated through the floating zone. So you would plop the zone onto this property and you give its own zoning district, and you would avoid having to go to the variance, but you're still going through the whole same process in essence that you would have to go through, and even more cumbersome if you wanted a variance for another dwelling on your property to go, versus if we had this global TDR program that did this overview of SECRA and took the hands out of a town board to do a case-by-case
Right.
determination. Now we have this information bank, and they already told you which parcels are appropriate for community housing. So it's more efficient, so we don't have to go through this whole review, because we know that those parcels are right for community housing, and we could just buy, the developer could purchase a development right to increase the density.
And who's,
Yeah, well, who makes that determination?
Yeah, I was gonna say,
of what
who's
parcels that
awarding
come
the
in
TDRs?
GIS?
Who's what?
who's awarding the TDRs?
Well, the town is the banker,
Yeah,
and you would come and you would purchase the TDR from us.
but I mean,
But-
like,
but
who would
in-
be the body or the, who would be responsible for making those decisions? Since we've taken it out of zoning's hands and that whole review process, I'm just curious who decides, like, okay, you, Mr.
There is no board. Now, it would be, that's why we have to have a consultant come up with a program.
Mhm.
And they would have to, again, through our legislation that we develop, those would be the criteria of how you can, if you're a qualifying receiving district. If you're qualifying, you can bring the TDR to that for the increased density.
So we are doing the parameters of what a receiving district or property would be, because it doesn't have to be a whole district.
Correct.
It can be a single, but we're not identifying specific properties. We're just saying if properties fill these 8 requirements, they could be a receiving property?
Correct. So like in Southold, you have to be in the Halo zone,
Mhm.
which is, again, in close proximity to the downtown areas that they have. Like, you have the old village of Cutchogue, you have the village of, and I use
Right.
quotes, that's not really
Yeah.
a village, but the downtown areas. So you're close to employment, you're close to grocery stores, you're close to public transportation. There's more density in the area already. So these are areas that Southold has determined are areas that you can transfer development rights into, only for septic. They have just a purely septic. And that might be the way the town board feels like they want to go. But again, where it's very premature now to even make that determination, because we need the DGIS, we need the consultant, and then we need.
We need the housing plan too.
Yeah.
We need
and,
the whole picture in order to
Mhm.
determine whether or not.
Correct, because we're doing a
appropriate.
housing needs assessment, sort
Right.
of in connection with the community housing fund. We're having that plan. So this is a global thing, and they will feed off each other. But again, you have many ways to go about this. You can, again, as I said, narrowly tailor it to the needs of Shelter Island, needs of the residents, and make it specifically for community housing. There should be no fear that this could be morphed into increased commercial development or increased market rate residential. Now, and this is one other important thing with TDRs, you're not increasing the net density of the town. So you're only relocating density.
Right.
Like when the zoning code was created, it gave rights to all the properties on the town. And we know now what the town could be, and I'm sure through the comprehensive plan, you know what the max build out could be on the island. That's going to remain the same with transfer of development rights. It just relocates. It doesn't increase density anyway for commercial or residential.
The bottom line, Stephen, is being a homeowner, having a toolbox of my own. You never know what kind of tool you're going to need in order to do a job. Any of us that have tackled home jobs, well, I wish I had that tool. Is there not an advantage of building the toolbox and creating a fairly decent toolbox? Because even though you can tailor it, the way you want to use it, at least you have it in the box. You're not at the last minute, when in the middle of the job that you have to run someplace, to go find that tool.
That's a very good analogy, because like if you need to screw something in and all you have is a hammer,
Right.
it may work, but it's not the best way. And it
Right.
may actually blow up in your face and destroy
You
the
don't want to
project.
know what I've used for hammers.
No, but I'm
Science
just
fair
saying that
report?
the more varied the toolbox, obviously, the way you tailor a project, and you have controls over the tools that you have within this box. I think there's an advantage of building a solid box,
But I
the
would
right
think
tools.
with the concerns about land preservation and about overdevelopment and about the need for housing, I mean, we'd be foolish not to tailor the TDRs strictly to affordable housing.
Yes.
And
Right,
this
right,
right.
plays
right.
right into preservation, because
Right.
you're transferring development that otherwise
Right.
could be made
Right,
on properties and transferring it over
right.
and keeping.
You're
the
taking it
underlying
from
land
areas that are
intact.
more sensitive and putting it into areas that are
Correct.
more robust that can handle it.
Correct, and have better infrastructure and more.
Right.
Right.
Right. That's a good explanation, Stephen.
Good. Okay. Thank you. Okay, we'll do board members' reports. I'll start. Friday, read a letter from the Suffolk, from the East End supervisors and mayors. This is one from the Suffolk County Supervisors Association. Dear County Executive Balone, we write to you to express concern over the price of fuel oil and how it is affecting Suffolk County families. As you know, Governor Hochul has now offered relief at the pump by suspending the New York State fuel sales tax and motor fuel tax from June to December of this year. That this measure is expected to provide up to $585 million in relief for New Yorkers. Another way to provide relief to the residents of Suffolk County would be to suspend the county gas tax, a measure that the governor has encouraged all counties across the state to take. With summer fast approaching and the price of gasoline at highs we have not seen in years, now is the time to act on measures that will provide economic relief to our constituents. We call on you to suspend Suffolk County's tax on gasoline for the same 6 month time frame that the state tax will be suspended. We look forward to your positive results. And this was signed by all 10 town supervisors. And then I think I had one more. Just real quick on my end, the RFPs are due today for the TDRs and for the
Environmental impact study for the
Thank you.
housing.
housing
The needs
and
assessment.
Yeah.
the needs assessment. And Friday is the last day for applications for the full-time assessor's position. Next Wednesday, we're going to have a department head meeting at 3:30 and a committee head meeting at 4 o'clock to go over foils and SharePoint and a few other things. And that's all I have. Meg?
Yesterday, Dottie and I and the building department got together and had a meeting about the wetlands and special permit process and how paperwork is going to be moving through town hall. Right now, people are submitting wetlands and special permit applications to the town clerk's office. And we're going to switch that up, and they're going to be submitting wetlands and special permit applications directly to the building department. That way they can be evaluated for completeness and everything else before they go to planning board or CAC or anything like that for distribution. So just a heads up that that will be switching up a little bit just to make things more expeditious and to hopefully, reduce delays in processing. And also to not overload any one department. And that's really the big thing I had. We're going to be updating the website with information so that everybody knows why and where to go and how to go about it. Did I miss anything, or is that all summary? Good summary?
Oh, that's good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I have right now.
Good. Okay, thanks. Jim?
Yeah, three quicks. Last night we met at CAC. We had 3 applications, 4 Dawn Lane, 47 South Ferry Road, and 42 Gardner's Bay Drive. We acted on the second and third one, 47 South and 42 Gardner's Bay. The reason we didn't act on 4 Dawn Lane is the application was still incomplete. We did, however, look at that application the way it is right now We came up with 4 recommendations that we will have in our report. We did the same thing for 47 South Ferry. We came up with 4 recommendations, and by a vote of 7-0 supported that. And 42 Gardeners Bay, the vote was 7-0, also with 4 recommendations for that particular site. And I brought them up to date. And Gordon Gooding attended because I think Howard attended the morning meeting, and they were trying to create some type of marriage, a little bit more of a marriage between the CAC and the CPF, especially when it comes to the properties and visiting the properties and things of that nature. So that was a good meeting and got a lot done. This morning, we met with Shoreline Access Task Force. I think when they started out, some time ago, about a year and a half ago, that we had a set of goals for them. I think they've far exceeded those set of goals. They've done a pretty marvelous job. On behalf of the town board, I'd like to personally thank Peter Vielbig, Andy Reeve, who represents fire commissioners, Al Loretto, who represented the WMAC, Joe Fenora, our town engineer, and Bo Payne, our Bay Constable, for doing an outstanding job. I think their work has been pretty much complete. They will not, they'll be ready to finish up and make a presentation to the town board. They've taken a look at they fulfilled their mission statement. They're tweaking the final report. I asked them if they would get in touch with you, Supervisor Siller, to get on a calendar to make a report, final report. I asked them to color code it basically on what we had as an old in the code and the new changes in the code, so it be easily follow. I asked them to distribute that the week before they make the presentation so that we'd have the opportunity to go through it and ask fairly intelligent questions when they make that presentation. The official report, the last report is on SharePoint, dated March 31st. So you can take a look at that with some of the changes. They're working through the GIS with the IT committee. Bo has been working with the IT committee on the GIS program there. They are trying to improve access areas to Deering Harbor. It was one weakness because it's one of the few harbors of the 3 major that have limited access into the harbor itself. They talked about a rolling reevaluation schedule that they're going to do. They are talking about prioritizing repairs and improvements. So I think they're working, and they did praise Brian Sherman for getting on a lot of these repairs, especially at town landings that needed them, and cleaning up those town landings. I think the fact that we've removed boats from December, January, February, and March is a good thing. It gives the town 4 months opportunity to go to the town landings during the wintertime and clean those areas up and make repairs. They have also made specific recommendations at each site, which has been great. The people that were on the call this morning, I think Sandra, hasn't missed a meeting, maybe one. She said, listen, a wonderful experience, mission accomplished. Bob Harris, great job. And there was a lot of praising of the work of the committee, and I think it was well-deserved. They did a great job with this. Like I said, they started on this December 15th of 2020. For the last year and a half, they've been working nonstop on these things, and they've done a great job. It may have started out initially as a cry about Bootleggers Alley, but I think if you take a look at all the work that they've done and all the recommendations they've made and how we've implemented those recommendations, I think our beaches, our landings are in much, much better shape than they were. And it's an effort that they will continue to go forth with. And if the town board recognizes that we need them to reconvene, they can reconvene on a notice, but they will continue to visit, as they move forward to make sure that these sites are maintained. So that was it. And the third group that met last week, I didn't make a report on, it's capital planning. I'll go through it very quickly. The wastewater project up at the Heights, we need to get Stella on within the next few weeks to come in, make a presentation. I think Joe and I and Stella would be part of that presentation to inform the community about exactly what has been done thus far with that project over the last 2.5 years. Fresh Pond, again, that's on hold a little bit until we can sit down with CPF and figure that out, or figure out what we're going to do and how we're going to remediate that pond, specifically where. There's a couple of other possibilities that have come about. Municipal wastewater treatment, no significant updates. We're waiting to find our alternate site for the, for the treatment and for the discharge. So when that is established, Jen is excited about getting that going because she feels that there's monies available. So there's a little bit of we need to get these projects up and going. And I know Hazen, Lombardo Associates need to come back and fine tune that project, once we've selected that site. Real Point, we had to get all that information to March 24th to Ms. Olivia Crackle at the Army Corps of Engineers. We did that. We gave her two bits of information on that. We have spent since 2016 $1.137 million on dredging at Real Point. Based on one hydraulic dredge and 4 mechanical dredges, I did that through 2029. It will cost us another $2 million if we do one more hydraulic dredge and 5 or 6 more mechanical dredges, which is what we're going to have to be doing. That whole project, when it originally went through in 2017, was about $3.2 million. We will be spending about $3.2 million between now and 2029. So again, it's something that, and the other thing was we gave her all the necessary paperwork based on 2017 study of First Coastal on the living shoreline, and broke the project down into exactly the cost based on 2017 monies. And she was very thankful. She feels, and it's her feedback back to me, that the Army Corps is very excited about this project, and it should satisfy the needs of the FID, which is that federal interest determination. So that's a good thing. Crescent Beach, good news is we did at Friday's meeting award the bid for the concrete slabs. Finally got those approved. The second company, which was slightly higher bidder by just $5,500, does have the MWBE requirement, which is the minority and/or women business enterprises. It fulfills that need, and it satisfies that 30% of the grant. So although we went with a higher bidder, we will save ourselves conservatively between $30,000 and $40,000 of our money by going with a slightly higher bid, because they can fulfill that requirement. Multi-year capital plan was still on hold on that. Shelter Island Community Center across the street. We've received 2 bids on that, one for the concrete work, which is done by a local person here on the island, and the other quote came for the roof portion. Brian was looking to make sure that those bids were solid. We're trying to get those 2 parts done before Memorial Day. Brian is still optimistic that we can get those 2 pieces. There are 3 pieces involved: the roof, the staircase, and the ADA ramp. The ADA ramp will be done after Memorial Day. Not going to be able to get that done before, but that shouldn't impact on the use of the building. On West Neck Water Infrastructure, once an agreement is signed, Jen is saying she's chomping at the bit, trying to get some of that grant monies available for the infrastructure there. I noticed there was a leak on West Neck. The road was closed down yesterday for the entire day as they would fix the leak on West Neck in the main. So, Jen feels that we can qualify for some monies there. So I'm pretty excited about that. The ADA compliance, that's out for bid. It should be back within a couple of weeks for the police department. The mitigation measures, the ferry terminals, geared for, again, the stuff that Mark Woolley had given me was geared for much, much larger projects. So we will continue to work on, and Jim Reed has been working closely with Joe and both ferry companies on making suggestions on how to improve and reduce mitigate the flooding at those terminals. The recycling roof, we mentioned already. The grants drivers for the senior center. The due date for the deadline was March 21st. We did get all that information submitted on time, and it was complete. And lastly, the only other thing I had was, again, Mark Willie, as I was running the meeting last Wednesday with the PEP, my focus with PEP is on, we've done all these feasibility studies, we have all these great, and we're one of just the other 5
The
years.
public knows what PEP is.
Okay, the PEP is the Peconic Estuary Partnership, which is, a big organization that takes care of the entire Peconic Estuary. It has all 5 East End towns in the town and Brookhaven and a couple others that are part of that network of that estuary. It's one of, several dozen national estuaries in the United States. Its funding has increased. The relationship now, we used to deal with a company up in New England that was not serving the needs of the PEP real well. We now have Stony Brook University and the labs there. There's a tremendous amount of work going on with researching at Stony Brook about improving the quality of the shellfish in the Peconic Estuary. They have taken a look at Peconic estuaries to our south, particularly in the Maryland area at the Chesapeake Bay, and trying to look at the oysters and scallops that are growing there, and taking a look at the seagrasses that are growing there, and perhaps trying to introduce some of that technology, up into our area. But the big push will be on show me, it's always show me the money. We have all these, projects in the works. We need to get them funded. And unfortunately, these things that I've been, put on by Mark, and I'm very thankful Mark Willie is helping us with this, they're not really designed. And I speak to Jen several times a week now, and her big word is, Jim, these are things that for big interstates, major tunnels, major bridges, not for the kind of work that we're doing here. They're much, much bigger scope. So we need to get monies that are available to help us with the 4 major feasibility studies to be able to get these things up and running.
So let's build the bridge.
That will be, we don't want your husband out of a job. And so we'll strike that from the record, by the way.
That would qualify.
But, that's the thrust of it. There are a lot of good projects. I plan on sitting down with Supervisor Siller and getting the PEP in sometime when the population comes back. I'm hopefully in June, maybe. Bring them in for a board presentation. We'll not explain just what PEP stands for, but all the good works and all the projects that are going on, including the project that we have going on here at the South Ferry with tide monitoring, at the South Ferry, and how that all relates to improving water quality within the Peconic Estuary. So that's it. I mean,
Thanks, Jim. Amber?
Yeah, I just have basically one thing. West Neck Water District, the lease is on the town website. So if you go to committees and go to West Neck Water District, you'll see it's there. It's the final draft. It's dated April 6th. And we are requesting written comments from the public by tomorrow so that, nope.
I was gonna request that we extend it for a week, just
Okay.
because some people may not have known.
Okay,
previously.
I was going to ask like when it
It's a
got
big
posted,
document.
because I didn't look for it until today. So, okay, so we'll extend it to, if tomorrow's the 13th, until the 20th then.
Also 12.
Tomorrow's the 12th.
You're right.
Today's the 12th.
Yes.
yeah,
yes.
19.
What it, yes.
You're right. You're right. You're
Yeah,
good.
you're right. Sorry, sorry.
Yeah, that's, I just know what day of the week it is. That's the plus. Okay.
Here
so-
it's Tuesday.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Confirming.
So yes, so written comments until the 20th so that we can discuss it at the board, the work session on the
Prior to the-
26th.
Yeah, and the
So
29th is.
So the
meeting.
29th is like when we're trying to get this.
So do we want to make the deadline Monday for comments? And so we can discuss it at next week's work session and not be so rushed for the town board meeting? I'm sorry, I'm
No,
not
I'd rather-
leaning forward.
let-
You'd rather give,
Yeah, do it, yeah.
because it's a whole weekend.
I mean, we've gone through this so many times, so I sort of feel like we're just down to like the last couple of
Mhm.
things and making sure like we
Right.
understand. And Stevens, spent, a lot of time on this with Bishop, is that his name? I can't think
Joe
of it.
Burgoyne.
No, no.
Hopkins.
No, Hopkins.
Hopkins. So I don't know.
All right, so we're saying comments in by the 20th, and then we'll talk about it at the 26th work session instead of the 18th. We talk about it on the 19th. Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying.
You want to talk about it at the 19th and then have another opportunity the 26th before the meeting on the 29th.
Right.
Gotcha.
Okay.
But
That's fine with
you're
me.
saying we're really so close that we don't need all those opportunities.
That's what I'm thinking, but
Yeah, I don't think there's going to be major.
Well, one of the questions I overheard in the office this morning was, was everybody notified? How much notification do we need to give if we put it on the website and we discuss it
We
here?
are discussing.
I mean, we can't, hold everybody's hand and call them up and say, would you like to comment?
No, absolutely, totally agree. There was a request that the West Neck Water District Board send an email blast to all the customers. But
Mhm.
I think we're doing what we need to do
Mhm.
as far as getting it out from our perspective. But the West Neck Water Board maybe should send an email out.
Mhm.
Say, hey, take a look at the town website. Hopefully latest and greatest and final
Mhm.
versions up there, and the town board's ready to act, so take a look at
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
it. Amen.
so where did we land? Just so I have.
If you
the
want to
great-
close comments on the 18th, so we can talk about it on the 19th and then again the 26th if we need to.
If we need to, and this
Instead of
whole
the
idea that
20th?
we're trying to get our town board meetings set, a little bit further
Yes.
in advance than 2
Okay.
days, 3
Yeah.
days. So
Okay.
that's
All
another
right.
reason
Yeah, it's
from
good
my
idea.
point
Yeah.
of view.
Close comments on the 18th.
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
Discuss it next Tuesday and
Discuss it.
get it,
Okay.
get her done.
Good job.
Okay. All right, good. Yes.
Good
yes.
job.
And then WQI Met, they're starting to look a little bit at the, West Neck Water District hasn't formally made a request to look for grant funding from WQI. So that's being, discussed and internally, different people are looking at it and,
Mhm.
every piece of information. So that will continue, but there's no resolution's been
Mhm.
made. We'll look at that at the next
Good.
WQI meeting.
Okay.
That's all that I had.
BJ?
Yeah, on WQI, a couple of final payments were approved, so I guess we'll be getting those. And a couple of were tabled, there's also 2 sort of sticky wickets on their docket. One that I think that they've sort of said, we're sorry that the homeowner has not finished paying you as a subcontractor, but you'll have to take it up with the homeowner. And another one where the house has transferred, has been sold, sort of not in the middle of the process of applying for a grant, but in the process of applying for the grant at the beginning of the process. So it was a matter of helping that homeowner, the new homeowner, figure out where he is in the process and where he has to go so that he could apply for a grant, which it sounded to me like he very much wants to do. So,
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think some of the confusion there was he applied. The house was sold, so the old grants, expired. 'cause
Yeah.
They don't roll over automatically unless there's a request by both the seller and the
Buyer,
purchaser
yeah.
to effect that change. But then when applying for state and county grants, which are together, the
yeah,
application process, they didn't realize that it didn't cover the town
right.
process.
right.
So just to be very clear for people out there, the town grant process application is separate from state and county.
Yes, yeah. And you do want all 3.
Mhm.
And then yesterday was CPF. It was an exciting morning, let me just say. Very, I thought, really good discussion about what are we looking for? And of course, it's not the end of the discussion, it's just the very beginning in terms of properties and maybe shifting focus as over time. It's a good time to start this discussion because the CPF committee is working on updating the plan. And I think that's just the opportune time to talk about CPF properties, acquisitions going forward. And I think that was it. I mean, in terms of because I don't want to rehash the old meeting, I'll just tell you the balances are kind of stunning. It's 11.8 million in the CPF fund and it's 2.6 million in the WQI fund. So people apply for those grants. Let's get some of this
Yeah.
clean water going.
That's it. I have a question for, I guess, Jim,
Yes, sir.
BJ, and Stephen, WMAC. And we have stake mooring and pulleys at the end of Daniel Lord Road that we said we would move.
Yeah.
What's the process to move them?
That's a good,
The season's coming up. We got to get going. I don't know.
we have some meetings tomorrow, right? The Baymen are coming in and Bay Constable's a separate little meeting. And so why
What
don't
time
we
the band
bring
coming in more?
9:30 and 10:30? So why don't we have a discussion tomorrow and then have more to say? Does that sound like a good plan?
Yeah.
Yes and no.
No,
I
you
mean,
got to rush?
No, we're gonna
Oh,
move the moorings.
yes.
We agreed to move the moorings.
Yes.
So it's just a matter of.
You know,
what's
it's
the
which
legality to
moorings
do it.
and.
One's at the end of the road.
And
Well, two
isn't
thing-
there also a discussion that there isn't enough room ultimately for all the moorings that are there already?
Well, that discussion has to be held with, use it and lose it and how many,
Right.
are
Right.
not in use and
Right, and.
that
sen-
you can talk to the Bayman about.
Yeah, and
And that,
seniority
what's the
perhaps?
need over there?
Yeah.
I
We
yeah.
have to move those moorings.
Yes, yes.
I inventoried every one of those moorings on that
Yep.
spot, and some of them, there were some spots that are open. What I thought we were doing initially with the 4 that were at the end of the
Mhm.
road that were too close to the property, actually on their
Yeah,
property,
right.
was not renewing and working through that. That has happened with 1 or 2 of the 4. But there are still 2 or 3 moorings that are down there. We need to move them.
Jim,
sooner
do
rather-
you have the
Oh, yeah, I
numbers?
have
Yeah,
that.
Jim has
You have
I'll bring
the-
that tomorrow.
Yeah, yeah, good. okay.
In
Yeah, that was
fact,
good.
and I'll get you a
Yeah.
copy of that.
Yeah.
Right to start with. You
Right.
coming here?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's all
9:30? Okay. I have a PEP thing, but I'll do that separately.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, then we just gotta figure out what's the legality of, how do we formally move them?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
I'll talk to the Bay Constables.
Okay.
Yeah,
Bob?
Jerry? It's actually in the code that you guys are allowed to move the moorings.
Okay. Good, thanks.
Supervisor, I just think we have to discuss process and we can do that tomorrow.
Yes, yes.
Yep.
Legal process.
That's what I'm, that's.
And and proper notification.
Yeah.
And I think that's really going to be key here.
Exactly.
Okay. Okay,
I have,
Stephen?
yeah, I have one thing I just wanted to clarify, so, residents don't get, I want to clarify what I said, because I may have misspoke a little bit. As far as where TDRs can be transferred to the receiving site and whether, they could just go to this bank and now I can take this credit and build a house. Now, there will still be oversight.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, that's what I was getting at.
like we can delegate it to, if the planning board ever gets back site plan, we can delegate it to them. Because what we're trying to avoid is the use angle, so you don't have to go for a variance or anything like that. So it'd be appropriate for whoever does site plans to make sure it's cited correctly, that there's adequate parking, the lighting, screening, all that stuff. So that would still be involved. Some municipalities have the town board be the conduit between, the actual request for the development right and giving it out. So there's review by the town board on the town board level. So it's just, again, this is a work in progress and we got to figure out what's the best fit and the most efficient way to effectuate the program. So, but I just wanted to make it clear that it's not like, in my hypothetical, I own a lot and I want to put a couple houses for community housing there that I can just go to this bank and say,
Mhm.
and just
Mhm.
wave
Right.
my hand and I got it. No. There will be some process, but it will be a streamlined process.
So Stephen, the planning board is taking over the wetlands applications.
Yes.
Do we need to have a discussion with them about site plan also, or?
I think at some point the town board should, they're the appropriate body to handle site plan applications, in my mind.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that should be a discussion.
So we should do that at a planning board work session or at one of our work sessions?
Maybe
How should
One
we
of
do
our
it?
work sessions.
One of ours?
Maybe you could piggyback it on next week's meeting with the committee,
Yeah,
Okay.
okay. Anything else? Dottie, you have anything for us?
No, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Anybody in the audience? Yes, sir.
Everybody, I'm Steve Jacobs. As the person who drafted the letter you referred to, excuse me, on behalf of the Shelter Islanders for Clean Water and Responsible Zoning, just wanted to make a couple of very brief comments, and since it's turned into a nice day, I'll try to talk more quickly than I usually do. First, I just wanted to thank the town attorney for trying to educate all of us on what are some really pretty complicated issues here, and thank the town board for educating the public or starting to educate the public on these issues. There is a concern that I think a lot of people have about commercial development unrelated to community housing. And I'm very happy to hear from the town attorney that the board, if it wishes, can make clear that TDRs can only be used for affordable housing. And although it's just obviously very preliminary, the sense I got in the room was that that's something that the board would seriously consider. And that, in my mind, is very, very good news and is a means perhaps of really trying to unite the island and reduce dissension that may be created as you go forward with these things. I also, just now speaking personally, I totally get, and I don't pretend to be an expert in this field, but I totally get the advantages of having a program for the transfer of sanitary credits to reduce the problems for getting affordable housing or community housing through the Department of Health. At some point, I want to listen at least once, maybe twice, to Stephen's comments today and try to make sure I fully understand them. After that, I think I may have a couple of questions about whether TDRs really are needed for the toolbox and what the actual advantages are and whether in fact they provide any advantages to trying to preserve property. But certainly, as I said, I want to hear what you said again, do a little more research on my own, and none of this, as you pointed out, needs to be dealt with right now. So I just want to end by thanking Stephen and the rest of you.
Thank you.
I think also, let me just, if you have questions about the sanitary credits after you examine them, that means the country does, the island does. So I'd like to handle it this way in the future if we can. Write the letter with the clear and crisp questions, and then we can answer them publicly so everybody who might have the similar question can hear the same answer. I like this.
If that's the board's preference, obviously it's up it's up to the board. I think sometimes it's easier for people just to talk one-on-one, and that's not I heard a prior meeting concern that that's not transparent. But I mean, the board to function has got to talk to people individually all the time, and they should.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, the notion of my sitting down with you and saying, hey, what about this? I don't understand this, strikes me as though there's nothing wrong with that, and it can save particularly some of you perhaps some time. And
This topic especially.
yeah, that's
Very-
all I mean.
No, I could have a conversation, then bring it to the board at a work session. If
Yeah.
this was brought up, I think we should bring it.
Right.
To really clarify things.
Yeah.
But again, we're going to have these,
Yeah.
again, because I'm by no means an expert in this area as well. And that's, hopefully we are hiring an expert to come educate us all on the pros and cons of this. And, I think, and having the public involved every step of the way, and even bringing in, before we have a public hearing, we could bring the consultant in from time to time to, give us a briefing as to where they are, what they're thinking, what they found. That might be another way to keep it on the front burner as opposed to the back burner.
Right,
as
right.
we
I
go along.
really don't like that comment directed at us, sometimes earned, sometimes not, that this is a surprise. That, there was a surprise. The town board out of nowhere decided or had a study done or, so I think the more often we can talk about it, maybe being prompted by you, organizations like yours in public, the better. I just think it's a goal.
Okay.
This is what they call even, Stephen.
Steve, the only other thing I want to say is, my understanding from day one was the transfer of development rights are directly related to housing. We're not looking to do anything else with them.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
kind of why I keep bringing up that the legislation has been in place since 2006. And the CPF committee got not a recommendation, they got a ruling from the CPF, review board that the only way you can use the TDRs was for housing. And for whatever reason, it's taken from 2006 till now to put the TDRs in place. And
I appreciate those comments. I just note that in a number of places, TDRs have become a bonanza for developers who are,
Yep. Mhm.
want to do all sorts of
Right.
things that a lot of us, perhaps all of us, really do not want to see in
Right.
Shelter Island.
Yep.
Amen.
No,
Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you.
Okay. Anybody in the audience have anything? BJ, Julia?
No, thanks, Jerry.
Julie, you good?
I mean,
I'm gonna assume Julie's good. Okay, if there's no other comments, I'm gonna make a motion. We go into executive session for some ongoing litigation and a personnel matter.